the 20, 10, 5, Torrey Horton back to the end zone.
28-yard play. Guess who? Body up the middle, making another move to the outside. 15, 10, end zone again.
Keeps it. Nice move by Brown. He's got space. He's got 6. 35-yard touchdown for Byron Brown. A record-setting night for the South Florida quarterback.
Down so far, a little bit of a high snap. Genty right up the middle. Genty has room. Ashton Genty, give him 6.
Second and long. Lagar tries to pin it in. Runnels, it does. Runnels stays up. The Suns offense 4-3 wins. Incredible effort for Royals.
The G5 Hive. All G5, all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live. We are excited to bring you the G5 college football coverage you love each and every week. I am Luke, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. Hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. And don't forget, G5 Hive merchandise store is now live. Link is in the YouTube video comments, as well as pinned on our X page.
There you go, right there. I just, matter of fact, I just put it on the bottom of the video. So it's, if you want some merch, you can go to that link below. It's on the X page, and it's now in the video comments as well.
All right. Well, let's get into our G5 Hive 2020 guys here. Start off with the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, they are in the top 20 in pass attempts and the top 20 in passing yards. If they're in both of those categories, they make it. If they're only in one of them, they do not make this list. Let's start here. Chandler Morris, Spencer Petras, Kitna, Hennigan, McCown, McLeod, they're all averaging the most completions per game in the G5. Morris and Petras are the only guys on this list averaging more than 300 yards passing per game. Chandler Morris, North Texas, comes in at number 1 for me. He's got the least amount of time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.48 seconds. He's got the most big time throws in the G5 with 23. He's tied for third in the G5 in turnover worthy plays with 15, averaging 28 completions per game, which is the most in the G5, and he has the most passing touchdowns in the G5 with 26. Joey Aguilar sneakily comes in at number 2 for App State. He's tied for third in the G5 in turnover-worthy plays at 15. He's got the second highest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 11.1, but he's got the yardage. They're always playing from behind, and he's doing a good job of completing those passes. So I'm just waiting for this blow-up touchdown game. We saw a much better week this last week. Let's see if he can string together a couple more. Number 3, Jordan McLeod, Texas State. He's got the least amount of turnover-worthy plays of these 2020 guys with 5, and is second in the G5 in passing touchdowns with 20. So protects the ball, throws touchdowns. I like that mixture. Jordan McLeod there at number 3. Number 4, Spencer Petras, Utah State. We've got the Jalen Royals news. We've got a bye this week. We'll see if he's able to come back or not. Again, contradicting to reports out there, but I'm going to hashtag stand on business. Tucker Gleason comes in at number 5 for me. Toledo, he's got the least amount of pass attempts per game of these 2020 guys with 31, and tied for the least amount of big time throws of these 2020 guys with 5. It makes sense. If you're not throwing the ball, maybe the ones that you are throwing are not the big time throws. Owen McCown, UTSA, comes in at number 6. I just talked about how much they've been passing it lately. The last 4 weeks, he's thrown 50, 43, 45, and 50 times. He's got 10 touchdowns over those 4 games, averaging 262 yards passing and 2.5 touchdowns per game. Seth Hennigan comes in at number 7, Memphis quarterback. He's tied for second in the G5 in big time throws with a 19 after that rocky start. Kind of has this offense clicking a little bit more than it was at the beginning of the season. Number 8, Evan Simon Temple, sneakily averaging 8 rush attempts per game and 27 yards per game on the ground. Sacks not included. He's managing the games pretty well for Temple. Temple's actually been doing pretty well this year, better than I had thought, and in a lot more games. Mikey Keene, they're at number 9, Fresno State quarterback. He's got the least amount of rushing yards per game of this group with 3. Definitely don't expect him to be running around. He's going to be a pocket passer, passing it around. Jalen Kitna, UAB, comes in at number 10, second most time to throw of these 2020 guys with 2.91 seconds, tied for the least amount of big time throws of the 2020 guys with 5. Also makes sense. He's only started like the last 3 games, or maybe it's the last 2 games, and came in for that 3rd game. He hasn't had a whole bunch, but I wanted to add him in here because when he's out there, he's throwing a lot. He's per game in this 2020 group. So if this is going to be him moving forward, I want you guys to know about Jalen Kitna. He's also got the lowest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 7.3. Devin Dampier comes in at number 14, New Mexico, tied for second in the G5 with big time throws with 19. So that's kind of a sneaky stat. I'm not so sure people would know. Highest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 11.5. Again, he's throwing the ball pretty well. Most rushing yards per game from this group was 69 per game, averaging double-digit rush attempts per game with 10. I think I missed a couple guys. Oh, no, I didn't.
You just said the wrong number for Dampier. That's all.
Okay, I said 14. He's number 11. He's number 11. Sorry. Number 12, Cole Snyder, Eastern Michigan. Been doing a lot of damage there on the ground. Braden Shager comes in at number 13 for Hawaii. The most time to throw these 2020 guys with 2.94 seconds. Jalen Rager makes his, I think, debut. Maybe he was there early in the season, dropped out. Arkansas State quarterback. He's got the least amount of touchdowns with 7 from this group. Well, I guess technically it's Kitna because he only has 4, but again, way less starts. So Rayner had been starting all season, not throwing for many touchdowns. I think he just had the game last week in which they won, I believe. I don't think he threw for a touchdown in that one. So not getting a lot of touchdowns there. And then number 15, Nicholas Vadiato, Middle Tennessee, rounds out the top 15 quarterbacks. Running back wise, everyone on this list is at 91 yards per game or more with at least 16 opportunities per game. So these are like workhorse guys in some fashion. You've got Ashton Jeanty, Boise State, coming in at number 1, 64 missed tackles forced, the most in the G5, the most touchdowns in the G5 with 18. Mario Anderson at number 2, Memphis running back, second in the G5 in touchdowns with 13, averages 4 receptions per game. You got Mekhi Hughes coming in at number 3. Number 4, Rasul Faison, Utah State, is the second most forced missed tackles in the G5 with 53. If we're not going to see much Royals the rest of the season, I expect, and Brock Lane being out, I think we see a lot of Rasul the rest of the season. Marquez Cooper, San Diego State, comes in at number 5. We're really excited to see the matchup there of running backs number 1 versus number 5 for the G5 Hive going at it Friday night. Trey Stewart, Jacksonville State, comes in at number 6. Yards after contact per attempt is second of these 2020 guys with 5.24 yards. Third in the G5 in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns with 11. So there's 3 guys with double digits. It's Trey Stewart, it's Mario Anderson, and Ashton Jeanty. Braden Sloan, Ball State, number 7. He's got the least amount of forced missed tackles of these 2020 guys with 16. He's first of the 2020 guys in receiving yards per game with 39. That's also second in the G5. Coming in at number 8, Ahmad Hardy, Louisiana, tied for last of the 2020 guys in total yards per game with 94. True freshman, comes in, averaging 94 yards per game, been there since day one. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. Just not going to do a lot in the receiving game. Ishmael Mahdi, on the other hand, he'll do something in the receiving games. He lit up ODU a couple weeks ago, but he's got the least amount of touchdowns of these 2020 guys with only 2. He's only been able to find the end zone twice this year. Number 10, Terran Stewart, Bowling Green, 0 receiving yards per game, tied for last of the 2020 guys in total yards with Ahmad Hardy with 94. Again, him and Hardy not doing a lot in the passing game, but at least Ahmad Hardy will get looked at. So Dean Connors comes in at number 11 for Rice, second of the 2020 guys in receiving yards per game with 36, which is third in the G5, averaging 5 receptions per game. I don't really know. I did not get to lay my eyes on that UConn game.
It was an ugly game for Rice.
He had a whole bunch of receptions, but there was not many yards to go with it. Number 12, Avery Morrow, Colorado State. And then Ontario Brown drops down to number 13 for me this week. He's been kind of in and out. He got kind of banged up a little bit, nicked up in this game. We'll see if he's able to stay on the list coming in week 10. All right, wide receivers. All the guys here are averaging 74 plus yards per game. Nick Nash, San Jose State, leads the G5 in touchdowns with 12. Only guy in the G5 averaging double-digit receptions per game with 10. Jalen Royals, I am going to keep him in here until he's probably missed a couple more weeks. Again, I'm not so ready to take him out quite yet. He's one of 2 players averaging double digits targets on the season, but obviously his stats are going to stay stagnant here. We got a bye week, and then we'll see what happens after that. Ken Robinson comes in at number 3, App State, still with 0 touchdowns on the year, but he's getting you receptions, he's getting you yards. DT Sheffield pops up here to number 4, North Texas wide receiver, tied for second in touchdowns in the G5 with 10 receiving touchdowns, I should say. Lowest average depth of target of these 2020 guys with 6.2, yet he has the highest yards after catch per reception of the 2020 guys with 9.4. You got Ricky White, again, number 5. I talked about having kind of a down week this week. Boise State kept him in check. But again, that Haj Malik Williams switch at quarterback has done wonders for Ricky White. Number 6, Luke Wysong, New Mexico. We'll see if he's able to go this week or not. Again, he was in a boot, so it's going to be hard to see him going. If he misses a few games, we'll see how this one goes. But right
Javen
now,
Jacobs could be a beneficiary, I think, if Luke Wysong's unable to go. Running back.
And then Jamal Pritchett at number 7, South Alabama. He's tied for last of the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8, which is pretty amazing. Like, getting 8 targets per game, pretty good. Second of these guys for yards after catch per reception of the 2020 guys with 8.2. Number 8, Troy wide receiver, Devontae Ross. He had a boom game this last week, but that move there at quarterback, typically, I don't think that game that we saw this last week from Ross, I'm not so sure we see a lot more of those games because it's been rough.
Yeah.
When
without Goose Crowder, it's been rough.
Yeah, Goose. Dante Wright Temple, he missed last week. They're on a bye this week. He's tied for last of the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8, averaging the least amount of yards per game of the 2020 guys with 74. I can see this bye week kind of kicking him maybe out of this 2020 list. Dron Newton, Toledo, tied for second in the G5 in touchdowns with 10, tied for the least amount, or tied for last in the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8. So getting you 8 targets, but getting you a lot of touchdowns. When you say like, process over results doesn't apply to Newton. He's getting, I think, like 4 receptions a game or 5 receptions a games, and he's getting touchdowns galore. Camden Benjamin, Tulsa, comes in at number 11. Again, switch there at quarterback. Cooper Lagasse should be the starter and that really helped out Camden Benjamin in this last week. Corey Rucker, Arkansas State, he had a boon game this last week. He comes in at number 12. And then Amari Kelly, Middle Tennessee, comes in at number 13 and 14. We talked about him a little bit before, but Justin Lockhart, San Jose State, tied for last of the 2020 guys in targets per game with 8, averaging the least amount of receptions per game of the 2020 guys with 4, leads the 2020 guys in average depth of target with 19.7, the lowest yards after catch per reception of the 2020 guys with 3.1. So he's not getting very many receptions. They're deep down the field, and he's going down as soon as he's getting them. But they're throwing the ball to him after this quarterback change. Tight ends, again, the same names. I just moved Terrence Carter ahead of Dorian Fleming this week because, I mean, I get it. Louisiana was on a bye, but Terrence Carter is just crushing it as of late. So I'm just going to kind of go through some stats for these tight ends just so you have an idea. Harold Fannin, Bowling Green, this is per game averages. 8 receptions on 10 targets, 118 yards, and then he's got 6 touchdowns on the year. Tanner Cozell comes in at number 2, Ball State, 8 receptions on 9 targets for 72 yards, also 6 touchdowns on the year. Holden Willis, Middle Tennessee State, 5 receptions on 7 targets for 74 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. Terrence Carter, Louisiana, 4 receptions on 5 targets for 66 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. Dorian Fleming, Georgia State, 4 receptions on 6 targets for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year. That does it for the offensive side. Justice, take it away for the defensive side.
All right. We will start off with the defensive end. Or edge, as some folks call them. All these guys are ranked based on havoc rate. Havoc rate is a combination of things: sacks, tackles for loss, quarterback pressures, stops on 3rd and 4th down are also included in that. Number 1 should be no surprise at this point. He has been in the top 5 every week since week 1. Mike Green, he's the only guy on this list that's been here every week. Mike Green, defensive end, Marshall. Havoc rate of 16.2%. He ranks 2nd among defensive ends and quarterback pressures with 33. Number 2, defensive end Eric O'Neill, James Madison. Havoc rate of 15.3%. Has a rush win rate of 16%. Number 3 and 4, we got a pair of teammates here. First up, number 3, defensive end Bradley Weaver, Ohio. Havoc rate of 14.9%. He ranks 5th in sacks with 6, and then his teammate, first time on the list, is Marcel Walker. Marcel Walker Burgess from Ohio, havoc rate of 14.5%. He ranks 10th among defensive linemen and tackles per game with 3.88. And then rounding out the top 5, defensive end Brian Ugwu, Miami, Ohio, havoc rate of 14.3%. And he ranks 1st among the defensive end and quarterback pressures with 37. Moving over to the interior guys, the defensive tackles, and we have 3 new guys this week. Top 2 are brand new to the list, and they're a pair of teammates. Once again, defensive tackle number 1, Skylar Gill Howard, Northern Illinois, havoc rate of 14.2%. He ranks 2nd among defensive tackles in quarterback pressures with 18. His teammate, Devontae O'Malley, comes in at number 2, also from Northern Illinois, havoc rate of 13.5%. He has a rush win rate of 15%. So, those 2 guys are getting things done in the middle there for the Northern Illinois Huskies. Number 3, defensive tackle Anthony Hawkins, Bowling Green, havoc rate of 11.1%. He ranks 2nd among defensive tackles in sacks with 4. Coming in at number 4, defensive tackle Peyton Price, Eastern Michigan, havoc rate of 10.4%, and he ranks 1st among defensive tackles in quarterback pressures with 19. Rounding out the top 5, defensive tackle Deonta Johnson, East Carolina, havoc rate of 10.1%, and he ranks 1st among defensive tackles in tackles for loss with 5. The MAC is well represented in the interior D-line. 4 of those 5 guys play in the MAC, with Deontay Johnson, the lone representative from the American. Moving over to the linebackers, these guys lead the G5 in tackles per game. The same 5 guys as last week, but they're not in the same order. Teammates again, number 1 and number 2. Sean Dolak, Buffalo, leads the G5 in tackles per game at 11.75. He has extremely low missed tackle rate of 4.1%. His teammate, Red Murdoch, comes in at number 2. He's coming on strong. He's catching Sean. Maybe he'll pass Sean this week or the next week in tackles. But right now he's number 2, coming in at 11.5 tackles per game. He has 6 sacks on the season. So not only is he, a tackling machine, he's also getting pressure on the quarterback. Number 3, linebacker Travion Barnes, Florida International, having a phenomenal season for the Panthers. 11.25 tackles per game. He has 10 total quarterback pressures on the season. If Reggie Peterson had not retired or had retired before the season, Travion Barnes could be your tackle leader, because he didn't get very many tackles in that first game because Reggie Peterson played. He kind of took off once Reggie Peterson announced his retirement from football. Number 4, linebacker Colin Ramos, Navy, 10.86 tackles per game. He has a pretty low missed tackle rate as well of 9.5%. And rounding out the top 5, linebacker Jaden Yates from Marshall, 9.43 tackles per game, and has a solo tackle rate of 67%. All right, let's move over to the DBs. We're going to start with the cornerbacks. These guys are all ranked based on adjusted net yards per coverage snap. So you're looking at what happens when the quarterback targets these guys. So, you're looking at, how many catches, how many yards go against them, how many interceptions they get, all that divided by their snaps and coverage. Number 1 is cornerback Deshaun Peel from Navy with an adjusted net yards against of negative 0.178. He ranks 4th among DB's interceptions with 3. Coming in at number 2, cornerback Terrence Spence, James Madison, an adjusted net yards against of 0.113. He ranked 1st in interceptions with 5. Coming in at number 3, Dante Joyner, Arkansas State, adjusted net yards against of 0.150, averages 4.63 tackles per game. Number 4, Rayshawn Pleasant, Tulane, adjusted net yards against of 0.217, and has a quarterback rating against of 43.6. And rounding out the top 5, he's been on this list the last several weeks. Cornerback Torrey Richardson, Temple, adjusted net yards against of 0.250, and he has 5 pass breakups on the year. To kind of give you guys some perspective, typically the top NFL corners will have a number maybe slightly less than 3. All these guys are less than 1, and in Deshaun Peel's case, he actually has a negative number. All right, let's move over to the safeties. Same criteria, adjusted net yards against per coverage snap, and all of these guys have negative numbers, so they're all having phenomenal seasons. Number 1, safety Jerron Manning, Old Dominion, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.556. He's also averaging 6.75 tackles per game, getting it done in run support as well as in coverage. Number 2, Jacob Thomas, James Madison, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.389, has a quarterback rating against of 0.00. Coming at number 3, Tyree Skipper, Louisiana, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.237, and he ranks 3rd in interceptions with 3. Number 4, back on the list this week. He had been off the list for a week or two. Safety Wydett Williams Jr., Louisiana Monroe, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.072, and he's averaging 7.29 tackles per game. So he's another safety like Jerron Manning. They're getting it done both in run support as well as in coverage. And then rounding out the top 5, new to the list this week, David Carter Jr., Eastern Michigan, adjusted net yards against of negative 0.063. And he has a quarterback rating against of 41.7. And that's going to do it for our 2020 guys, the top players in the G5 at the various positions.
All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Come back and join us next week as we discuss what happened in Week 10, as well as look forward to Week 11 of the 2024 season. And as always, we bring you up to date on all the latest news and happenings in the world of G5 college football. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, please give us a retweet, a like, and a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and give those 5-star ratings and reviews. Again, Justice has it. If you're watching us on YouTube, the G5 Hive merch store, you can find all of our stuff there. If you want to support us, go buy some merch, support G5 Hive. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.